Hello, this is Dr. Michael Greger coming to you live from my treadmill as I do every month to answer any questions you may have. Sorry, starting a few minutes late, having some audio problems. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. It was a little staticky before. For those of you unfamiliar with my work, every year I read through every issue of every English language nutrition journal in the world. So busy folks like you don't have to. I then compile the most interesting, most groundbreaking, most practical findings to new videos and articles upload almost every day to my nonprofit site, nutritionfacts.org. Everything on the website is free. There are no ads, no corporate sponsorship, strictly non-commercial, not selling anything. Just put it up as a public service, as a labor of love, as a tribute to my grandmother, whose own life was saved with evidence-based nutrition. As the questions flood in here, let me just say, let me see if I can make this pop up on the screen. Ta-da! What is that? That's the How Not to Diet cookbook. Came out this month. Within the first week, sold more than 100,000 copies. How crazy is that? So I'm so happy people are finding it useful and gifting it to others. All proceeds, of course, from all the sales of my books all goes to charity. So it's just all good all around. All right. And another thing I wanted to tell everyone is I have a live, let me see if it's got a presentation on the bone health study. This is going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow, what is that? 12:18 at, let me see what time it is. Hold on. It is going to be tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. At 3 p.m. Eastern time on YouTube and Facebook. Okay, let me add this caption. Ta-da! That should pop right up. That didn't pop. Ta-da! There it is. So tomorrow at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time on Nutrition Facts YouTube, on Nutrition Facts Facebook. In fact, just whatever you're watching now, come back to this. And tomorrow, I've been working on it all week. You know, this new Epic Oxford study suggesting those eating plant-based diets have higher fracture rates. Is that true? What can we do about it? I'm going to do it tomorrow. Free presentation tomorrow. I hope you will check it out. All right, let's get to your questions. That's what we are all here for. Okay. All right, let's see the first one on the list. Ravo asks, is there much calcium in dried basil? 38 grams is 100% of the RDI. Is that true? I would not be surprised. Why? Because you know what basil is? It's a dark green leafy vegetable. If you know what fresh basil looks like, it's greens. And all low oxalate greens, including basil, have tons of calcium. But you know how much 32 grams of basil, dried basil? I mean, well, I guess, yeah, so fresh. Dry basil, that'd be a lot. But if you're talking about 38 grams of fresh basil, I can't believe we would actually have the RDI. But basil is good for you. Something you can grow on your patio. All right, next up. Me asks, is oat milk bad to consume every day since they use enzymes to break down the carbs in it into maltose? Is it bad to consume every day? So are you suggesting, so that'll show up in sugars, in the sugar content. So are you suggesting even unsweetened oat milk has kind of quote unquote added sugars because they break down? That's a good question. I don't know. Oat milk is not the most nutritious plant milk out there. Anyone have any guesses? Soy. Unsweetened soy milk is the best. It blows away almond and rice and coconut and oat, etc., etc. In terms of not only nutrition, but in terms of actually clinical outcomes. But you can randomize women to drink, soy milk, cow's milk. You actually get an improvement in bone mineral density for those drinking soy milk, et cetera, on down the list. So not just observational studies, but interventional trials showing soy milk, not just soy products in general, but soy milk actually has beneficial effects from cholesterol, et cetera, et cetera. So look, you don't have to drink any milk. Milk is for babies. But if you're going to put some milk on your oatmeal, unsweetened soy is the way to go. That's what I like. My favorite brand, just taste-wise, not nutrition-wise, but is the Whole Foods brand. The generic brand has a nice like vanilla flavor that I love. That is what I buy myself. All right, next up is Chris asks, can you take potassium supplement off? Ooh, fancy. I have a bunch of videos coming up talking about sodium and potassium. The question is, well, wait a second. Is it all about sodium-potassium balance? So if you have high sodium, can you just take more potassium? No! But we should definitely decrease our sodium, increase our potassium intake. And should we do that through potassium chloride supplements? Potassium chloride, these salt substitutes. If you're going to add some sort of salt, potassium chloride would definitely be better than sodium chloride. But the best place to get your potassium is greens and beans, and whole plant foods in particular, in general. All right, next up. ME is back. And more. So we already. So our store-bought plant-based meal is bad to consume every day since it contains calcium carbonate. You may be referring to my videos talking about. I have one video: are calcium supplements safe? Are calcium supplements effective? Two different videos. And my calcium supplements safe showed that high doses of calcium, like calcium carbonate, causes a spike in your bloodstream and causes a hypercoagulable state, makes your blood thicken and increases your risk of cardiovascular disease. But that's only when you get whopping supplemental doses. The amount found in, in plant-based milks or regular milk, for that matter, cow's milk, is eating much kind of smaller doses throughout the day, and one should not expect to have that same cardiovascular effect. So that's just for supplements. Of course, if you took teeny little supplements throughout the day, then it wouldn't be a problem either, but that's not how people take calcium supplements. Next up, Angelina says, thoughts on supplementing creatine. Have you ever considered having a student intern? We've got tons of volunteers and interns at nutritionfacts.org. You should go to our website and sign up. And I have some videos talking about creatine supplementation. Just type in creatine. Talking about supplementing with a gram of creatine. And my videos on nutritionfacts.org. And the problem is I talk about the problems with contamination and finding a clean source and the small subset of people that may want to give it a try. Okay, next up, Max says, what are my recommendations for vitamin B12 and D supplements? In fact, why don't I throw that into, I should take advantage more. Oh, I'm getting shocked again. I got to put my grounding wire on my leg. Otherwise, I've got one of these crappy, cheapo treadmills because I'm kind of in transit. Oh, I have news. I'm moving to Seattle next week. You're the first to know. On Tuesday, moving to West Seattle. Anyway, but I am in LA, between places. I have this cheap treadmill. It creates a static shock, and that just happened to me. But okay. All right. But the question was about B12 and D, and here is the URL. Well, that's not going to help people. There's the URL. Anyway, you can take a screenshot. You can come back later. You can type this in, or if you just go to nutritionfacts.org, type in optimum nutrition recommendations. I have all my recommendations about B12 and D. In fact, that'd be probably better to actually copy that here instead of there. But basically, 2,000 units of vitamin D, 3 a day if you're getting inadequate sunshine. And in terms of vitamin B12, I talk about children and pregnant women and seniors. But for typical adults, it's 50 micrograms once a day or 2,000 micrograms once a week of cyanocobalamin in most shelf-stable, effective form. And then, but for those older For our seniors, 1,000 micrograms once a day. There's no weekly dosing for the elderly. All right, let me take that off and see the next question. And that is 3L says, doesn't the high protein in soy milk block the absorption of antioxidants? It's not the amount of protein, but the type of protein in soy milk. What it does is it binds to the polyphenols in beverages like coffee. And these polyphenols are one of the reasons plant foods are so good for you. But it reversibly binds, meaning even though it binds your small intestine, when it gets down to your colon, it detaches, and your gut bugs can feast and gets absorbed back into our system, circulates through our body. It's unlike cow's milk protein, which irreversibly binds to the polyphenols, so you actually lose out. Not so with soy milk. Stefan says, what are my recommendations on best foods for kids? Best foods for kids are the best foods for everybody. And that's my daily dozen recommendation of the healthiest of healthy foods. I encourage people to fit into their daily diet. Free app, iPhone, Android, Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. You just have to make sure with kids, since they have such tiny tummies, that they need to get enough calories in the day. And so, the fact that the healthy foods tend to be so low in caloric density is a good thing, because adults can stuff themselves to the brim and not gain weight or even lose weight no matter how much they eat, depending on the kind of foods they eat. But little kids, they're growing, have high energy needs for their size. And so they need to eat lots of calorically dense foods like nuts, seeds, avocados, nut butters, seed butters, smoothies, dried fruit. We need to support their growth. Hummus, tofu, etc., etc. Okay, next up, we have Ant, who asked, many of my videos explain omega-3 supplements are not effective versus various diseases. That's true, but omega-3 is on my list of recommendations. So are they any good? There's this misconception that something's either good for all things or good for nothing. That's not true. Of course that's not true, right? Just because, the best example of this is vitamin D. When vitamin D is actually put to the test, some things it completely falls flat on its face for, and other things it's beneficial. You don't know until you do randomized controlled trials. And they've done randomized controlled trials of omega-3s, long-chain omega-3s, and found it doesn't help your heart, which is what we thought, which is why a lot of people take them, but does help your brain. I've got both, and so even though it's not helping my heart, it's helping my brain. And so, yes, I'd encourage people to consider taking preformed long-chain omega-3s, such as 250 milligrams of DHA every day. Okay, next up, we have Maria. Is it okay to eat cocoa every day with your grains? If it says, lowers iron absorption. So it depends on what your iron status is. So drinking tea, coffee, or sprinkling cocoa can interfere with iron absorption, which is actually a good thing. One of the reasons we think coffee tea is so good for us is it actually decreases iron absorption. Iron is a double-edged sword. We need enough to make blood with, but it's also a pro-oxidant, and high levels associated with high rates of diabetes and cancer and all sorts of things. In fact, got these amazing studies. You randomize people to basically blood donations, which is like modern-day bloodletting, decreases their iron levels, and almost immediately their risk of cancer drops. Really a remarkable set of experiments, and I've got videos on that on nutritionfacts.org. And so it's actually beneficial. What we want, this is the ideal situation, low iron stores, but adequate blood production. So that means your hemoglobin. So hemoglobin okay, and then ferritin, kind of the marker of iron storage, as low as possible, while keeping your hemoglobin okay and not having any symptoms. So it actually may be good for you, but a significant number of menstruating women, because they lose blood every month, have insufficient iron levels. So no difference between, for example, meat eaters and vegetarians and vegans, but that's not saying much, because all reproductive age women who are losing iron every month are at risk. And so if your iron levels are fine and you're eating cocoa, go for it. But it's good for something to think about if indeed you are becoming anemic. You want to separate your coffee, tea, and some of these other foods that interfere with iron absorption. You want to eat them between meals instead of with meals. Okay, how we doing? Kajan, 86. It's better to take supplements like B12 and D supplement separately or as a multivitamin separately. Why? Because there's, well, certainly, so B12, there are some metals found in multivitamins. So there's some minerals, such as copper, that may affect the B12 molecule and turn it into something that's unusable by the human body and actually undermine our vitamin B12. So we never want to take, we want to take B12 separately, apart from everything else, so it does not get harmed. And I don't think they put D in multivitamins, but that would be fine. But there's no reason you need a multivitamin. But if you don't get enough sun, you need D. And everyone eating a healthy diet, an evidence-based diet, should get a regular, reliable source of vitamin B12. Next up, Danielle says, good morning from Sydney. Good morning, Danielle from Sydney. Steven says, I saw the video. Oh, monk fruit and stevia. Very cool. Because spike in blood sugar end of the day, total calories the same as blah, 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 blah. Yes. Oh, I guess you have to ask short questions because it cuts you off. So basically the question is, what about erythritol? Does it have the same adverse effect as monk fruit and stevia? And because we think it's this disconnect between sweetness on the tongue and calories in the stomach that kind of resets the thermostat in our brain, one would expect erythritol to have the same effect. All right. Next up, Alessandra says, should we be avoiding foods with preservatives in them? Preservatives is kind of a catch-all term. So there are bad preservatives like BHT, and then there's preservatives that are innocuous. So, for example, you can, see things like citric acid or something that helps with preserving. So, yeah, I wonder. So, I do have some videos. I remember specifically talking about BHT, but yeah. So there's no kind of one-size-fits-all answer to that question. In general, though, what has preservatives in it? Stuff in a box or a bag or the processed foods. Fresh foods don't need preservatives. You know why? Because they're fresh, and that's ideally. So fresh or frozen or canned. You should be able to eat healthy food without worrying about preservatives. So yeah, something that has preservatives, probably not good for you anyway because it's a processed food. Okay, Mia says, my friend's daughter was just diagnosed with juvenile arthritis. Ugh. What are the 2 things I can do to avoid steroid injections? If you type in juvenile rheumatoid arthritis in nutritionfacts.org, everything I've ever learned about it will come up there. Forget what the video recommended. I presume it's the same thing as for adult arthritis, but adult rheumatoid, but you'd have to check. Cosma says, Father, stage 4, prostate, metastasized. Yeah, watching video giving us hope. Yeah. So, initially, in fact, one of the earliest videos on nutritionfacts.org was this remarkable research from Dr. D. Norton showing reverse the progression of early stage prostate cancer. But yeah, okay, what about late stage prostate cancer, metastasized prostate cancer? Well, there is some hopeful research there as well on dietary interventions, and that's all up on nutritionfacts.org, of course. Okay, next up, Alice says, can I please write an informative book of this knowledge without recipes? Oh my God! Are you just trolling me? How I don't have my books with me, but How Not to Die. There's a book called How Not to Die, 15 chapters, each of the 15 leading causes of death. How Not to Diet, talking about weight loss. I just published a book this year on the pandemics. I have another book coming out. So I'm working on another one. Most of my books have 0 recipes. I do have a new cookbook out, which I'm very proud of. But yeah, don't worry. Go to your favorite bookseller and look up my name. And there'll be lots of informative books with thousands of citations. Enjoy. Skeletor, the gentleman. If I eat 3 or 4 a.m. on a night shift, is that a good early breakfast or a bad late night snack? It's a bad late night snack. Depends on when your circadian rhythms, but that's so I mean you can actually take your temperature and see when it bottoms out, but no, that's bad. That's a night. That's not you should wait for the morning to eat. We should not be eating overnight. All right, Rachel says low thyroid after going plant-based. Why? Well, maybe you're getting inadequate iodine intake. That can cause hypothyroidism. So fall in love with sea vegetables. Snack on some nori. Watch my videos on iodine. It's probably the easiest thing to do. Frank, what about mycotoxins? What is a mycotoxin? It's a fungal toxin. Not just in nuts, but in grains. I've got a whole series of videos coming out on mycotoxins. So stay tuned. But yeah, important question. I'm so glad you asked it. Okay. And in fact, if there weren't a million questions coming through and I only had about 5 minutes left, I could actually pull up some of the scripts and go through exactly what we found. But I want to get to as many questions as possible. And they're definitely coming up on Nutrition Facts soon. What's the difference between miso and soy with salt added? I thought it was the same, Maria asks. Miso and salt. So miso is the only high sodium food that is not associated with what we typically associate high sodium foods with, like high blood pressure and stomach cancer. And so there's this hypothesis that maybe the soy is so good at lowering blood pressure that it counteracts the sodium. And so can't you just eat soy like tofu with some salt on it? If you're going to eat salty food, why don't you add some tofu? We don't know if that's so I like the logic. I see where you're going with it, but we don't know that's the mechanism. There may be something else about miso. There's all sorts of interesting new molecules created by the fermentation process. There's something about miso that does not contribute to sodium-associated diseases. We're not sure what. Until we do, I would not add salt to anything. It is the #1 dietary contributor to death on planet Earth. High sodium intake, so we should try not to add salt in the kitchen, in the dining room, and try to achieve the American Heart Association recommendation of under 1,500 milligrams a day, which is difficult to do if you eat processed foods, but that's great. Don't eat processed foods. Eat a diet centered around whole plant foods from fields, not factories, real food that grows out of the ground. Tomek. Vegan suffering from chronic cough and seborrheic dermatitis for a year. Doc ruled out lung issues through tests. Possible leaky gut. I don't know how a leaky gut would cause a chronic cough. So there's lots of reasons chronic cough. Be allergic. So if your lungs are okay, that's good. But it could be coming down from your nose, like some postnasal drip. It could be coming up from your stomach, like some acid reflux, irritating your airway. So there's lots of other things your doctor can check out. AXB says caloric restriction without malnutrition stunt growth in adolescents. Well, without malnutrition, there should not be any adverse effects. As long as there's sufficient calories for growth. Obviously, if you calorically restrict enough, then I guess you're essentially hitting malnutrition. Roz says, hey, how much is too much dates? Because I eat 1 kilo a day and don't gain weight and other problems. Well, that's 2 pounds for those of you non-metric related. 2 pounds of dates. Is there any way to eat olives without all the processed stuff? Okay. How many dates is too much? So, I mean, dates are wonderfully healthy foods. My only concern would be, I don't know how many calories that is, but I just wouldn't want to exclude other healthy foods. I mean, if you're eating 2,000 calories of dates every day, I don't know how many calories that is, but if it were something like 2,000 calories, you wouldn't have room for all those other things on the daily dozen. But I'm a date fan myself, just not quite up to your level. There are non-salt processed olives. In fact, I was all excited. I actually ordered you can't get it locally, but on the internet, I ordered a jar, and it never came. I was so bummed. So yeah, so I don't know what they taste like, but because I love olives, but trying to cut down on sodium. So I don't know if anyone can find a good source where they actually send it to you and you actually get it. Then let me know. All right. Oh, someone's just responding to somebody else. BF, please help. Any ways to boost HbA recovery after stopping prednisone? Well, you stop prednisone the right way, which means you taper it very slowly. That's the most important thing you can do to prevent problems. Kit Kat K. Which teas don't inhibit iron absorption? Teas, herbal teas, or teas that are not part of the that are not, herbal tea, not caffeinated tea, not green tea, black tea, white tea, which is all from the same tea plant. Although I've got some videos coming up on iron absorption in teas, there were some herbal teas that did actually interfere with iron absorption too. I don't remember what they are. That's why you'll have to watch the video. I'll have to watch the video because I don't remember either. Oh my God, we only got a minute left. We got another interview coming up. Let's see if we can get to one more. Dennis asks, Crohn's disease, can it be caused from eating lots of whole grains? No, whole grains don't cause inflammation. But you should check out my videos on Crohn's disease. There's lots of things you can do. One thing I'd recommend is cutting out nutritional yeast, brewer's yeast, and baker's yeast. And you say, why? Check out my videos. Just type in Crohn's nutritionfacts.org. And let me again just remind everybody, tomorrow I have a live presentation on that bone health study. The Epic Oxford just came out recently. I've been working hard. So I got so many questions about it. I was like, all right, let's do this. And we're doing it tomorrow, right here, wherever you are, both on YouTube and Facebook, wherever you're watching this. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern time, we are going to go through the study, and I will give you my thoughts. So until then, enjoy. Thank you so much, everybody. Stay safe out there.